As Bosch Legacy Season 2 draws to a close, all of the loose ends are beginning to tie together. Naturally, this implies that Bosch, Maddie, and Chandler are in greater danger than before. Bosch is getting too close for Ellis and Long to handle, but Ellis has a plan. They must first conduct some real police work, like searching an unlawful apartment building and gathering evidence. Chandler executes her own strategy outside the courthouse by placing an envelope in a mailbox. Meanwhile, Bosch follows up on Lexi Park's missing watch by going to an Omega watch shop. According to the store owner, Dr. Schubert was the owner of the watch before he pawned it off to the Newan brothers to cover his gambling debt. Mo is able to find Jade's information because he has access to the pharmacy's files. Despite having the chance to view the file, he ultimately chooses not to. He freed Jade from her ex by giving her the thumb drive, which contains everything her ex had on her. Then there's Maddie, who is making defensive moves. An officer rep meets with her, following her testimony at the Dockweiler hearing. She asks if Maddie is still having trouble sleeping and focusing, but Maddie says no, so she can keep working. Maddie is clearly still going through some stuff as she gets emotional with Vasquez and Paulina, who are now back on the job. Bosch gets a call from Detective Duran, who informs him that the Newans were murdered and they need him to come in. With Chandler in town, Bosch meets with the detectives. They explain that 2 masked men were seen fleeing the scene after killing the Newans and robbing the place. They ask Bosch what he was doing there. Despite Chandler's protests, Bosch explains that he went to follow up on Lexi Park's watch, letting them know that their colleague Herrick bought it from the Newans. Chandler forced him to end the interview because she realized he was getting talkative. She is not happy that Bosch is discussing the case freely because she is afraid that he might say something that will be used against him in the future. But Bosch also feels guilty since he thinks he might have helped the killers find the Newans. Later on, he confides in Maddie about the murders and expresses his uncertainty over his own level of responsibility, whether or not he has something to do with the murder. Ellis looks for everything that he can use against Bosch at his apartment. In the end, he locates a picture of Maddie. He knows her as the kidnapped police officer, and he thinks they can use her to get to Bosch. Now that they know she is his daughter, Ellis and Long present their evidence on the brothel to their superior and request to be the ones who lead the takedown of the operation. They ask for some assistance, specifically from Maddie's unit, Hollywood CRU. Ellis works it out so that he teams up with Maddie. Chandler mailed a subpoena for the grand jury to Scott Anderson, the journalist who had previously spoken with Bosch regarding his grand jury testimony. Despite the anonymous nature of the mail, Anderson utilizes Chandler's link to Bosch to figure her out as a possible source for the article. He meets with her, but she declines to comment. He explains that he knows the grand jury is dealing with Russian organized crime and domestic terrorism, and he is going to publish his story on it the next day. When he does, many journalists, including Anderson, want to ask Chandler more questions. This time, Chandler does make a comment, stating that she will not be frightened despite someone attempting to destroy her reputation. As a result of the article, jurors are dropping out of the case now that they know what it is dealing with. This is a problem for the FBI, because if they can't get them back, they'll be forced to start their entire investigation over again. All of which we can assume was Chandler's hope with this plan. However, it may have some negative impact on Chandler. Ramirez speaks with Rose about his involvement with the FBI now that the article is out there. Rose says how disappointed he is with Ramirez, but it seems to be more pointed at Chandler as he sees her passing by in the hall. While they get ready to raid the brothel, Maddie talks with Ellis. He managed to build a connection with her by discussing Bosch and pointing out how difficult it is for victims to testify against their captors, which made her open up to him. Maddie innocently reveals to him that Bosch is aware that the Newans were killed by 2 masked individuals. The police stormed the apartment during the raid and took the pimps and sex workers into custody. Maddie witnesses Ellis acting a little too aggressively and kicking one of the captors. Ellis tells Maddie that what happened there should stay there. Maddie just calls the day educational. Bosch is getting a clearer picture of the case. One of Lexi's co-workers gives him her datebook, which just happens to contain a thumb drive with a recording of Lexi calling the Newans. She tells them she knows the watch was stolen and threatens to bring a formal investigation if they don't share the records with her. Bosch also follows up on Dr. Schubert but is unable to reach him. Regarding Alan, Bosch gets a text from the investigators investigating that case, stating that Ellis and Long were Alan's guardian angels. After learning more about them from Mo, he is convinced they are tracking his car because they are surveillance professionals. As expected, Mo locates the tracker, but Bosch tells him to leave it there so that they will believe they are still keeping a watch on him. Bosch then talks with Chandler and Mo about everything. Ellis and Long are identified by Chandler as the officers who stopped her. Bosch thinks that the watch holds the secret to everything. In an attempt to retrieve the documents, Bosch and Mo break into Newan's store. Bosch discovers their safe, which Mo opens. They find a DVD inside, which probably contains all the data they will need to support their theory. But Bosch can no longer operate unrestricted. Ellis and Long have had enough. They are able to pursue Bosch from Chandler's after correctly speculating that he discovered their tracker. Ellis follows Bosch and Mo as they make their way back to Bosch's house. As the episode comes to a conclusion, he switches off his light and accelerates to ram them.